For all of you that owned a 3DS back in the day, there was just something satisfying about seeing that green light appear. I would bring my 3DS around with me a lot back in the early 2010s, and it seemed like no matter where I went, I would pass someone else with a 3DS. I'm sure you all know what Streetpass is, but to summarize, if you walk past someone with a 3DS that's on, your Mii would travel to their Mii Plaza and vice versa, as well as unlocking various features in many different games. Some were simple and some were really creative uses of the feature. In this video, I'm just going to be going over some of the best uses of Streetpass in 3DS games. Starting off with one of the first games to utilize Streetpass in a creative way, we have Mario Kart 7, which lets you exchange ghost data. For racing fans, this was huge. Ghost data is a recording of your fastest lap times on each track, and with Streetpass, you could challenge the ghost of someone you passed and see how your times stack up. The coolest part, even if you never met the person, it still felt like a rivalry in some ways. You could spend hours refining shortcuts and everything to try to shave seconds off your time, all because some stranger passed you with a better Mushroom Gorge time. You could also get some bragging rights if you beat a friend's time. Now, it wasn't the most robust Streetpass feature, it was pretty simple, but it was just a nice element that added something social to the game. I mostly just tried to beat friends' times, and often did unless they were a complete sweat in this, and I'd really like if we got something like this in Mario Kart World, even if it's not through Streetpass. Animal Crossing New Leaf has a really wholesome Streetpass feature. When you Streetpassed another New Leaf player, their home would appear in a special area of your town called the Happy Home Showcase. This wasn't just a cosmetic feature because you could actually enter their houses, walk around, and even order furniture from them. It gave you ideas for how to decorate your own house, and made your town feel alive with influence from other players. The coolest part was how this encouraged creativity. I remember seeing some insane builds that inspired me to actually make some changes to my own house. I also saw some with no furniture, and other times it was someone who clearly spent hundreds of hours crafting their dream home. For solo players who didn't visit other towns often, Streetpass was the perfect way to get a glimpse of what other people were doing. It let you interact passively at your own pace and without needing to visit people online or even locally. New Leaf is probably my favorite 3DS game, and this is one of the reasons I just love it so much. Just so much charm, and I feel like New Horizons just doesn't have the same attention to detail that New Leaf had, but maybe that's just me. Off topic, but imagine a fully online Animal Crossing game where you can set up a world with friends, kind of like a Minecraft server. Like, yeah, you've been able to have friends in your own towns, but it hasn't been fully fleshed out to make it a big online social experience. So I never actually played Pokemon X or Y, but for some reason I have this game cartridge here, and I don't know how I got it, but I still think it's worth mentioning in this video. When you passed another player, you could see them show up in your player search system or PSS, and from there you could exchange trainer PR videos, stats, and more importantly, give each other O-Powers. O-Powers were temporary buffs you could use in the game, like increasing your EXP gain, improving catch rates, or making it easier to hatch eggs. If you passed someone who had an O-Power ready, they could gift it to you through Streetpass. This created a sort of brotherhood among Pokemon fans. Even if you never battled or traded with that person, they still helped you out. It also added a little extra to your playthrough because maybe you'd get a boost right before facing a tough gym leader, or an EXP boost that helped you grind less. It wasn't the most essential feature, but it added to the sense that Pokemon was a shared world. One of the coolest, most underappreciated Streetpass features comes from The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. When you passed another player, the game would generate Shadow Link based on their equipment, health, and upgrades. You could then fight their Shadow Link in your own game as a mini-boss encounter. It turned your solo adventure into something a little more personal. Suddenly your 3DS wasn't just your connection to Hyrule, it was also a gateway to battle strangers you passed at the mall. You could even customize your own Shadow Link by choosing which weapons it used, so it became this fun little minigame of making the most obnoxious, tricky enemy possible. Hookshot, bombs, max hearts. Good luck to other players. In a world where Zelda games are mostly single-player experiences, this feature gave Link's quest a social spin. Even today, I wish more Zelda games would try things like this. The last multiplayer feature in a mainline Zelda game was Triforce Heroes, which is now 10 years old. And damn, that makes me feel old. I got this on launch day and used to play it all the time when I was in middle school. Kid Icarus Uprising is chaotic in the best possible way, so it makes sense that the Streetpass system was just as wild. Also, side note, I am a Pitman in Smash. Comment below if you are too. When you passed another player, you'd exchange weapon gems, and these games represented weapons you could fuse into your stronger items in your own game. And the gems had all sorts of crazy combinations: giant claws, laser cannons, orbiting blades, you name it. But there was a catch. You couldn't just use the gem outright, you had to spend hearts, the game's currency, to forge a weapon from the gem. So Streetpass became a little gambling mechanic, and for some reason Nintendo loved mechanics like this at the time. You might get an amazing weapon or something totally useless. Either way, it was fun to see what you got. There was also a treasure hunt board where filling out certain goals or unlocking achievements would populate a grid. Some Streetpass achievements required passing other players, adding yet another incentive to keep your 3DS on you in public. Uprising was already packed with content that was crazy dialogue, epic boss fights, and fun multiplayer in Streetpass made it felt like the chaos extended into the real world. Tomodachi Life was one of my favorite 3DS games, and one of the many things I loved about it was the Streetpass feature. Married couples could have kids in this game, and when their kid is all grown up, they could travel to other people's islands via Streetpass. It's honestly a genius feature, and I hope it returns in some form in the sequel, even though the Switch 2 is Streetpassless. You would exchange these travelers and even get letters from your own people who have been traveling around and learn what they've been up to. There's a good chance if you played this that one of your travelers could have just ended up in a different country after going from one island to another and another, and it's just really cool to think about. I recently booted up Tomodachi Life for the first time in years, and I found a traveler waiting at the dock who had probably been there for like 6 years at this point. I'm just really hyped for Tomodachi Life 2, and I hope they give us some form of this feature. Even though there's no Street Pass, they gotta come up with something, because this was so fun to have in the game, to just have your travelers from your own island who grew up there, were born there, just go to other islands. I really hope they actually flesh out this feature more and learn even more about other islands that you already could in the 3DS version. You probably didn't expect Smash Bros. To have a Street Pass feature, but it is there. One of the modes Smash 3DS has that its Wii U counterpart doesn't have is Street Smash, another creative name by Nintendo. It's a top-down sumo minigame where you knock other players' tokens off a platform. Like, think Smash Bros. Meets Beyblade. Now, why would you ever play this instead of normal Smash? I don't know, but I played it anyway. It was just a quick fight that was satisfying to win. Like, sure, it wasn't deep like the main game, but it gave you a reason to boot up Smash on the bus and check if you picked up a new challenger. It may not be the most memorable part of Smash 3DS, but it's a great example of how even huge titles found something fun to do with Street Pass, and even these small features make me miss Street Pass on the Switch and now Switch 2, because it's just small things like this that add charm to their games. If you were around during the brief Yokai Watch craze, you might remember how hard it leaned into Street Pass. I didn't use the Street Pass feature much, but as you can see, I did pick up this game for some reason, even though I barely played Pokémon, and I'm pretty sure I pre-ordered this from GameStop too. In Yokai Watch, Street Passing other players would allow you to receive their Yokai medals, register them in your medallion, which is basically your Pokédex, and trigger battle challenges with their team. This wasn't just fluff, some medals you could only realistically get through Street Pass, and the battles against other players' teams weren't just cosmetic, they were actual tough fights where you could see how other players structured their Yokai loadouts. It made the game feel less lonely and added a community vibe that was honestly refreshing. You weren't just collecting yokai, you were connecting with a whole ghost hunting community in one blink of a green light at a time. If Yokai Watch had exploded in the West the way it did in Japan, this feature probably would have been talked about more. Honestly, I don't remember how much I played this mode because I never finished the main story. I used to get so many 3DS games at this time and even Wii U games that I just didn't finish because I was just so obsessed with Nintendo at the time. Fire Emblem Awakening and its follow-up Fates weren't just turn-based strategy masterpieces, they had a decently good Street Pass feature. When you passed another Fire Emblem player, their entire army would appear on your world map, and no, they didn't just sit there waving at you from a distance. You could interact with them in several ways. You could battle their team in a tactical match to earn experience and gold. You could buy items from their traveling shop which reflected their inventory. Or if you were feeling generous, you could just recruit one of their units outright for use in your own army. This wasn't just a gimmick, some players had perfectly optimized teams with insane builds, maxed out stats and rare weapons, and passing someone who had clearly spent like 100 hours customizing their army was both inspiring and kind of intimidating. And yeah, occasionally you'd pass one with completely random things, and that just added to the charm of Street Pass. It was the perfect blend of single player and social, like you didn't need to connect online, you didn't even need to know the person, just like with most of these Street Pass modes, or all of them I should say, yet somehow their story and choices can influence yours. And if you were a completionist, Street Pass also helped with collecting skills and building an army full of diverse, unexpected characters. It made your world feel less like a static map and more like a living continent full of wandering heroes, and it's kind of what Fire Emblem should be. Bravely Default is kind of an underrated RPG on 3DS. Early on in the game, your hometown is destroyed and it becomes your job to rebuild it. It sounds kind of basic, and while I'm not here to talk about the entire game, you can rebuild it faster by getting Street Pass. Each person you passed added a villager to your rebuilding efforts. More villagers means faster construction of new shops, better upgrades, rare items. The best part, these shops tied directly into your main adventure. Like if you wanted a rare item that makes boss fights easier, you could literally just try to find people in Street Pass and it would help you out. This created a really unique blend of gameplay progression and real-world movement. Like remember the Wii Fit meter that you could wear? Nintendo really wanted people to move around during this time, but every Street Pass made your game world better. It turned Bravely Default from like a standard RPG grind into a weirdly motivating fitness game if you wanted to play it that way. Honestly, this is probably one of the best uses of Street Pass in this entire video, and probably on the 3DS as a whole. Shovel Knight already had retro charm, tight gameplay, and more pixelated shovel action than anyone had asked for, but when the Street Pass Arena update dropped for the 3DS version, it gave you a reason to keep your trusty knight in your pocket. But when the Street Pass Arena updated for the 3DS version, it kind of made this version, I don't want to say the superior version, but definitely one of the better versions as this game has been on a lot of systems. So here's how it worked. When you passed someone, the game would save a ghost version of their gameplay from the special Street Pass Arena battles, kind of like in Mario Kart 7. Then when you went into your own game, you could fight their ghost in a mini level arena match complete with traps, obstacles, and loot. That actually makes it sound more like a Link Between Worlds. But even cooler, you could customize your ghost behavior behavior and setup. Your ghost recorded your actual moves where you jump, slash, dodge, or try to break the system. So it wasn't like it was AI mimicking your build, it was actually you fighting someone else. Yeah, it was weird, but this was a really creative use of Streetpass, like I've said many times in this video. These battles were short and sweet, but they felt surprisingly competitive, and because it was passive, you didn't need to schedule a time to play with someone. You could literally just walk past them and then later that night battle their ghost. Not a lot of people talk about this feature, and it's a shame. It was a clever way to add multiplayer depth without any of the hassle of setting up online games. Just leave it to Yacht Club Games to make Streetpass feel like local PvP with no stress. So if you thought Resident Evil Revelations was just a spooky 3DS horror game, apparently you missed the memo, because there was just a lot of grinding in this game. Like, it was kind of like loot shooter meets survival horror. And Streetpass actually made it better. Specifically, it improved Raid Mode, which was the arcade-style score chasing co-op mode that honestly had more replay value than the campaign. But through Streetpass, you could exchange rare weapons, special items, bonus missions with modifiers. Some of these bonus missions were straight up just wild, like all enemies are invisible or you only have a knife and 2 bullets. When you completed them, you could unlock stronger gear, like stuff you couldn't get anywhere else. Passing another Resident Evil player was like getting a challenge from a fellow survivor. Plus you could compare your rankings and stats. If you're the competitive type, this became an addiction. One street pass and suddenly you're grinding through 5 zombie-infested cargo ships to keep your leaderboard position. I don't know how many people were actually competitive in this game, but you know, I'm sure there were some. But what's wild is that Capcom didn't have to include this feature. It showed how even a survival horror game could benefit from Street Pass. Now, Super Mario 3D Land might not be the first game you think of when it comes to Street Pass, but it did have a nice feature. Every time you passed another player who owned the game, you'd receive a mystery box. These were bite-sized bonus rooms filled with coins, power-ups, or enemies, and most of them last about 10 to 20 seconds. Think of it like a mini speedrun challenge, like you get in, grab the loot, jump on a Goomba, and jump out. These weren't just distractions either, because mystery boxes contributed to your total star count, and some of the real ones even gave you extra power-ups or allowed you to grab coins you couldn't find elsewhere. If you were a completionist trying to unlock the final crown level, every little bit helped, and Street Pass became your best friend. Now, even better, the mystery boxes you receive weren't just generic, they were influenced by the other players' progress. That means more advanced players could send you trickier boxes, while new players gave you simpler ones. And if you passed the same person multiple times, the rewards got better. Nintendo knew exactly what they were doing, where they turned casual encounters into bonus content pipelines. So was it essential to beating the game? Obviously not, but it did make you check for Street Pass, and just gave a little more replay value to this. So if there was one 3DS game that embodied this era of Nintendo, it was Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, where they just had all these weird gimmicks. And I did make a video on this, so check that out. But for this video, we'll just be talking about Street Pass in it. So how did Nintendo tie Street Pass into this absurd game? Well, in true Rusty Slugger fashion, it had to do with bargaining power. When you passed another player who had Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, and I think we all did if I'm speaking for all of us, you could receive bonus items like extra donuts, which function basically like bribes, or special negotiation tools that helped you haggle more effectively with Rusty. These Street Pass items gave you an edge during the negotiations. Normally you'd talk to Rusty, give him a chocolate donut, even though he's a dog, and I talked about this in the video as well. But yeah, you'd give him this, and then maybe you'd knock a couple bucks off the price of a mini game. But Street Pass bonuses could help you in this. Like, Street Pass actually could save you money in this game, which I don't think it did in any other game. If it did, please let me know. So did Rusty's Real Deal Baseball have a Street Pass that a lot of people knew about? No, and also in addition to this, you could exchange high scores, so nothing too crazy except the fact that you could actually save money from it. But once again, go check out my Rusty's Real Deal Baseball video. So for Streetpass Mii Plaza, which is the Street Pass game, but this isn't just one game, it's a bunch of different mini-games you could play, or not even mini-games, some of these are fairly fleshed out. Whenever you'd get a Street Pass, they would show up at your gate and would greet you with some info like their most recent game. The most famous was Find Me, which actually inspired its own standalone game in Miitopia. In it, you use the Miis of people you pass to battle through a dungeon and rescue a kidnapped Mii. Miis would attack ghosts using the power of their shirt color, which acted like RPG elemental types. If you didn't pass enough people, you could spend play coins to hire wandering heroes, but it just wasn't as satisfying. There's also Puzzle Swap, which is a well-known game, where each person you pass gave you a puzzle piece to complete a 3D image of a famous Nintendo character, or some screenshot from a game, or something like that. This was one of the coolest features because each puzzle obviously had a lot of pieces, some had a ridiculous amount, some were smaller, but some puzzles were rare, meaning you could only get certain pieces from other players, creating an incentive to pass people multiple times. Nintendo later expanded the Mii Plaza with more games like Mii Force, Flower Town, Monster Manor, Battleground Z, among a few others. Each of them used Street Pass, but in different ways, whether it was recruiting Miis to blast aliens, grow plants, explore a haunted house, or fight zombies. However, my favorite game on here was Warrior's Way. You would build up an army of Miis to conquest in rock, paper, scissors style battles, and it was a blast. I actually checked my army recently, and I think I have like over 700,000 units, which I acquired by conquering other monarchs and bringing on their soldiers. So Streetpass was one of the things that probably only could have worked in the 3DS era, even though I'd love to get it back on the Switch too. Today we have more constant online connections, with a lot of games just forcing you to be online all the time. But there's something unique about having an offline social connection. You didn't need Wi-Fi, you didn't need friend codes or anything like that. You just had to carry your 3DS and hope someone else nearby did too. And honestly, this feature got me to bring my 3DS around a lot. Like, maybe there was a time where I wasn't going to bring my 3DS, but then I was like, you know what? I want to get some extra Mii's in my Streetpass Mii Plaza, or I want to get some extra features in whatever game. So I bring it around more, and I remember bringing it to school a lot, and every single day I'd get like 10 to 15 Street Passes. And I honestly really miss this feature. It didn't really have anything game-changing in any game, but it didn't need to. It was just a fun feature that gave Nintendo games, and even some other games, more charm. Since I've gotten my Switch 2, I think maybe I've brought it out of my house like once or twice. And if there was actually Street Pass on the Switch 2, it would definitely be more. Like maybe if I'm just going to the grocery store, I'd bring it just to try and get a few Street Passes. But it's really not that many incentives to actually bring it anywhere unless you're going to play it, unlike the 3DS. So Nintendo, if you're listening, please bring Street Pass back. So I want to know in the comments your favorite games that utilize Street Pass, your thoughts on Streetpass Mii Plaza, and if you'd like to see it on the Switch too. Put a lot of work into this video, just going back in some of my favorite games, and even some games I didn't either play that much or didn't play but had unique Street Pass features. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, like, and comment, and be sure to check out some of my other videos and join my Discord. Thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.